Okay, so I think now I can start the
Yes, now you
presentation.
can start.
Okay, thank you, sir. Farah, you need to enable me for the screen sharing.
Okay, I'm doing. Yes, now you can share.
Okay, sir. So today, actually, I'll be discussing two different topics. The first one is qualitative research. So we will discuss the basic features of it. I'm sure all of you probably know about qualitative research. However, we will discuss just some specific aspects of qualitative research, what it is, and how we can conduct the qualitative research, the differences that we have with quantitative research. And then I'll start with the case study method, which is there in your syllabus. Okay, so let us just consider these different research questions, all right, to explore the best practices for better time management, to understand the process of dealing with a loss and recovery, to understand why people behave aggressively in a crowded bus, to explore why men rape, to understand how terminally ill patients deal with death, to understand why people troll others in social media. Right. So, if we think about each of these research questions, probably you can understand that none of these questions we can answer by taking some questionnaires and asking people to put tick marks for specific statements and indicate that in a rating scale or something like that, right? It is very difficult. Why? Because here we are focusing on the why and how of a particular phenomena. Okay, so this is where qualitative research actually differs from the quantitative research. In quantitative research, we are bothered about what. Okay, what is the prevalence of depression in the entire population? Okay, is there an association between intelligence and achievement? Okay, so these are the type of questions that we ask in a quantitative research, because there we can directly go for the numerical data, and we can interpret those data for understanding the particular phenomena that we want to explore. But here, when we are talking about the why and how, there it is not possible to understand the relationship by the help of quantitative research. Why? Because when we are asking why behind any phenomena, we are looking into the deeper aspects of that particular phenomena. Okay, we are looking at the causes. Okay, now in social science research, this is not a biomedical research. We are talking about social science research. So there, so many different extraneous variables, confounding variables are always affecting different relationships, different associations. Okay, so there it is very difficult to pinpoint one particular cause which is leading to a particular behavior. So if you want to understand why people troll others in social media, if we want to understand this particular question in a quantitative approach, it is almost impossible to conduct the entire research, because in that case you'll have to predict that what can be the probable causes. Now, no matter how many probable causes you are trying to figure out, in this case, maybe 100 or 200, there is always a chance that you are leaving out one or two other probable cause. So that's why ultimately we are, leaving out rich information in this case. So qualitative research is concerned with this rich information about a particular phenomena, and that's why we go for absolutely different types of methods and data collection procedures and interpretative methods. All these are completely different from that of the quantitative research. Okay. So it's a form of social action. Qualitative research is a form of social action that stresses on the way of people interpret and make sense of their experiences to understand the social reality of individuals. Okay, so here we are concerned with the social reality of people. Okay, how they are perceiving the society around them, how they are interpreting the different phenomena that are happening around them. Okay, so it makes use of interviews, diaries, journals, classroom observations, immersions, open-ended questionnaires to obtain, analyze, and interpret the data, content analysis of visual and textual materials, and oral history. Okay, so we will be discussing many of these different methods. For example, interviews, we will be discussing, okay, and maybe in the process of these discussions, I'll also discuss about how we can, interpret all these data, qualitative data. How can we do the content analysis of different materials in this case? So when we will be discussing those things, you will probably, it will be helpful for you to understand these aspects in greater details. But the idea here is that all these different methods, they do not provide us with numerical data. They provide us with very rich textual data, okay, visual data. All right. So all these things we code and then we try to interpret it in greater details. Right. So we use open-ended questionnaires. Open-ended in the sense there is a specific difference between close-ended questions and open-ended questions. Close-ended questions we generally use in quantitative research, where the question is about, it's already some direction we are giving to the participants. So probably you are asking that, okay, do you like going out with friends? Okay, and there is a rating scale where you are giving the options. Okay, very much so, not at all, like that. Okay, so there is a definite answer which you are already providing. So that's a close-ended one. You can be asking like, okay, do you like to watch movies? Yes or no? Okay, so that's the close-ended part. Right, close-ended type of question. But in qualitative research, we are not bothered about this yes, no, or the rating scales. We are more curious about what the person thinks and feels about a particular phenomena. So here we use more open-ended questionnaires. So the questions can be like, can you describe your experience when you go out with your friends? Okay, so the answer to this particular question can never be yes or no, isn't it? So definitely the person will have to answer something in details. Okay, you have to describe it in details. So those kind of questions we ask the participants, so that we get very rich data out of those questions. Okay, so it is exploratory, and it seeks to explain how and why. Okay, how and why a particular social phenomenon or program operates as it does in a particular context. Okay, in a particular context, how the social phenomena or the program that is operating there. So what is the how of it, the process of it, and why it is happening? So what are the different, which are the different factors which is leading to that particular phenomenon? So it tries to help us to understand the social world in which we live and why things are the way they are, right? So there are so many different things that we see happen, keeps on happening around us, right? So psychologists, sociologists, social scientists, um, we are always curious about understanding why a particular behavior is taking place. Okay, what is leading someone to behave in a certain way? So if we are trying to understand this why, the cause, okay, that we have to we can only inquire through qualitative research, not by using certain questionnaires. Okay, so there are different qualitative data collection methods, like interviews, focus group discussions are types of interviews where um, we conduct interviews, discussions. It's more of a discussion where at least 3% should be attending. It ranges between 3 to 21, so that's the optimal range of participants you can include in a focus group discussion. All right, and there we ask questions in a particular manner. So it can be, for example, a researcher, suppose, wants to understand how adolescents who are suffering from diabetes, okay, type 1 diabetes, how do they cope with their daily treatment, sticking to the treatment protocols and all? How do they cope with it? So if you want to you know understand something like that, so a researcher can use a focus group discussion in that case, inviting maybe 3 to 5 or 7 adolescents together, making them sit together and then ask questions which are kind of like open to discussion. So how do they cope? So then all the participants will be discussing the answer among them. They will be sharing their own experiences, and the researcher records the responses, makes a note of the specific factors, specific features, and then try to understand which are the relevant points out of those discussions. So focus group discussions are very much helpful when we are trying to understand a new phenomena. Okay. Record keeping is definitely one very, very important data collection method. Record keeping, generally we use in observation method, in interview techniques, in focus group discussions, in all these different types of data collection methods. We do record keeping. Okay, and it can be even archives of data, documents, old documents, pictures. Okay, all these actually serve as a source material for information in case of qualitative research. Observation method is definitely one very, very important qualitative data collection method, which we have already discussed. Longitudinal studies, sometimes we use longitudinal studies where we try to understand a phenomena over a long period of time. Okay, so it can be like for example, a researcher might want to understand that suppose this G20 summit is going on, right? It just ended in our country. So all these presidents and prime ministers from all over the world, they visited our country, and so many different things happened, and people reacted to those things, those occurrences. So maybe a researcher wants to understand that across this entire phase of preparation for the G20 summit, and when it actually occurred, and all the things that happened during the G20 summit. So what is the general reaction of the people in our country, okay, to this particular phenomena that happened? Okay, so the researcher might can decide that, okay, can do a longitudinal study of this particular phenomena that happened over a period of maybe 2 to 3 months, because the preparations started taking place, long back. So maybe 2 to 3 months time, and the social media posts which were posted every day by thousands of people related to the G20 summit. Okay, and then do a content analysis of all those different social media posts. Okay, and then try to understand which are the specific themes which are coming out of these social media posts on G20 summit. So a researcher can decide to conduct a research like that, and can keep on recording this social media post for a period of 2 to 3 months, and then try to understand by doing a content analysis of the social media content. So such kind of longitudinal studies are extremely beneficial in this case. Okay, helpful in understanding such kind of research questions. And finally, case studies. So case studies we will be discussing today in today's class. So we will discuss it in details shortly. There are many other methods as well, but these are the most popular ones. There are different steps of doing it in a qualitative data analysis. See, qualitative data analysis is completely different from quantitative data analysis. Okay, so in quantitative data analysis, we know that we go for statistical analytics, analytic methods, and we can use softwares for doing it, and in that way we analyze the data and interpret it. But in qualitative research, it is completely different. So the data collection can take place through observation, interviews, by studying documents, by recording, archives. All those things are all those methods, all those channels are the data collection methods. Then data reduction. Okay, so what happens in qualitative research is that when we are collecting data using all these different methods, we get a very rich data, which is, which comes in bulk. So, for example, a researcher who is conducting interviews for maybe 5 to 7 people are interviewed for a particular on a particular topic. So you can imagine the amount of data, amount of information that comes out of all those interviews, okay, of 5 to 7 people. So many different themes emerging from it. So you cannot just report all these pages after pages of contents for these different interviews which you are conducting. So what you need to do is that you need to summarize this entire data into specific themes, okay, specific points which are emerging from this entire interview discussion. So that's what you need to do there. Okay, so in qualitative data analysis, we do selection, we focus on certain aspects of it, certain themes, we simplify certain parts of the content, we do abstraction of the themes taken together, and we transform these themes into specific ideas, okay, so, which proves or disproves our hypothesis, research hypothesis. So that's how we do the data analysis here. And then data display. So you can do very nice data display using matrices, graphs, networks. Okay, for example, thematic maps you can develop from thematic analysis, which is a type of data display that we do. We can use charts as well. So these are different ways through which we can do a data display. Okay, and finally conclusion drawing, where we give meanings, we confirm hypothesis, we verify hypothesis. All these are the different things that we do when we are trying to after the data interpretation, when we are trying to conclude, okay, what we are getting out of that particular research, that is what we do there, okay, in conclusion drawing. So there we give meaning, we interpret the entire data in this particular stage, and here we talk about the hypothesis, we either confirm it or we reject it, all those things we do while conclusion drawing, and we also verify. All right, so this is kind of the entire steps, the specific steps which we follow for qualitative data analysis. All right, so if we try to summarize the different steps, there are a number of steps. So the step one is to determine what to research. That's the first part. Okay, what do we do a research about? Okay, so here the researcher should identify the participants they plan to research and any key attributes that are a must have or nice to have, as this can be influential in determining the research approach. All right, so here we first talk about what do we want to do this research about. Okay, second step is identifying how to research it. So once we are decided about what we want to research, for example, if we want to do a research on why people troll others in social media these days, it's a very common occurrence these days. So why do we do that? Okay, so that is the first step. Second step will be then identify how to research it. So how can we do it? How can we ask questions about it, those different people? Okay, what should we do to understand this particular phenomena? Right, so here researcher will look through secondary data and research. Secondary data is what? The already existing data on this particular topic or this particular phenomena. So we start looking at whether it has already been researched. Okay, if yes, then whether there is already a database which shows us that what is the frequency of this frequency with which everyday people are trolling others. Okay, whether there is any specific pattern in it. Okay, so we will look into this secondary data first, if there is existing data. If not, then we go for more exploratory approach. So here we will have to determine if the research input needs to be attitudinal, that is what someone says, whether we are looking into what someone says, or behavioral, what someone does, as well as if they need to explore a problem space or evaluate a product. These help determine the methodology to use. So these are the specific approaches which will determine whether we how we are going to research this particular topic. Okay, so that's the second step. The third step will be planning the research. So once the researcher has determined what they will be researching and how they will research it, they will generally write up a research plan that includes additional information about the research goals, participant scope, timelines, and dependencies. So all these things, the entire methodology, you have to decide. However, qualitative research is quite flexible, right? So here, what happens is that in contrast to quantitative research, in quantitative research, we have to have a very well-designed research method, decided right at the beginning. You cannot change it, right? So before starting with the research itself, executing the research, you have to decide on who are going to be your participants, how many participants you are going to include, what is going to be your research process, the instructions, the the equipments which you are going to use. All these things are pre-decided, right? But in qualitative research, we have certain level of flexibility. So it can happen that you are starting off with interview technique, and you first you thought that, okay, I'm going to ask 3 specific questions to the participants, and then when you are actually interviewing the participants, maybe some insight came to you, and you thought that, oh, all right, so maybe I can include 1 or 2 other questions as well. Right. So you can include new questions in the middle. You can um, you know uh, modify your research method to some extent while conducting the research itself. All right. So nonetheless, we need to plan about the, just to ensure the objectivity of the research findings. We need to plan this. It cannot just go on completely unplanned. All right. Fourth step is to prepare the research. So researcher must prepare the equipment, participant details, incentives, assets, etc. All these things you have to prepare. Step 5 is executing the research itself. So researchers will generally aim to execute research activities for 1 to 2 weeks. It can require some more time as well. In some longitudinal studies, maybe it may take longer. Okay. um, so for example, diary studies, so where the researcher will have to go through different documents, archives, okay, diaries, and then to understand the phenomena itself, there it may take longer. All right. So that's the 5th step. 6th step is synthesize and find insight. So this is the step where we start with analyzing the data. Whatever data we are getting, whether in textual form or pictures, visual form, recorded materials, whatever it is, okay, we have to code it, and then we have to start with the data analysis part. So here we start with looking for common themes, okay, or sometimes success rates, okay, if our research question is more evaluative, and both of these will then lead to insight generation. Okay, that researchers will then look to tie back to the project's original research goals. So whatever insight we are gaining out of it, we then try to relate it with our research aim, okay, the purpose of the research. All right. So that's the 6th step. All right. 7th step is create research output. So after a researcher identifies the key themes and insights, the researcher will reframe these findings to a relevant research output to ensure that stakeholders understand and buy into the outcomes. Meaning that you have to associate whatever you are finding, you have to associate it, the findings, with your original research goal and the hypothesis which you have framed right at the beginning. Why? Because otherwise it will be of no use, isn't it? So you have to focus on the implications of the findings, relate it with the hypothesis which you have generated right at the beginning, and then interpret it in the light of the current findings and your framed hypothesis. Okay, so that the outcomes which you are reporting, that has at least some implications for people, right? Finally, share and follow up on findings. So after the research outputs are complete, some researcher will do a pre-share or walkthrough with key stakeholders or potential detractors to the research, meaning that after the research is completely executed, we go for sharing of that research output with others who are the beneficiaries of the research itself. Okay, for the people for whom we are doing the research. So it should be shared with them, and a follow-up on the findings should be done. So this evaluation is very important when we are going for a qualitative research. All right. So these are more or less the steps that we follow for qualitative research. So different methods, which I already mentioned earlier. And these are the different methods for data analysis in qualitative research. So that can include content analysis, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, thematic analysis, and grounded theory. So among these, I think we will be discussing grounded theory and thematic analysis, content analysis. All these I will discuss in the context of different other data collection methods. So these methods can actually overlap and can be similar, but it's not necessarily one or the other. Generally, what we do is that we can be combining one or two different methods for data analysis. Okay, the basic aim is to make sure that whatever data we have got, we are able to interpret it in as a whole, and we are able to understand the phenomena from all possible perspectives. Okay, so that's why these different methods can be overlapping, and we can be using all these different methods, more than one method for analyzing the data. Okay, so I'll stop here on qualitative research. If you have any specific question, please feel free to ask. Any questions or doubts about whatever we discussed on qualitative research?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
This is Anjali.
Yes, Anjali.
So, though we have not discussed it in detail, but when you just showed the last slide, in there it was like the methods of qualitative research, right? In which so
Yes.
I am just confused. I wanted to clarify between the difference between content analysis and thematic analysis. Like my confusion is that in content also, do we also see the themes and try to find out the themes, and in thematic, like how are these two different? That's my question.
Yes, see, as I mentioned, that these are quite overlapping actually. You have got it right that content analysis and thematic analysis are very much overlapping. So content analysis, in content analysis, what we do is that we look into certain themes, but also certain concepts. Okay, and we code the entire data is coded into different categories, and then we try to look into the pattern. Okay, so that's what we do in content analysis. Thematic analysis also, we do the same thing. We do we first code the entire data. Okay, and then this coding itself is quite different across these different methods. Okay, so I'll discuss some of this when we will be discussing interview method. So there are many different coding techniques that we use for thematic analysis, and then we, based on these different coding techniques, different logics that we use for understanding the relationship among codes, then based on all these, we develop the themes. In thematic analysis, we are more concerned about the themes which are emerging, and we construct a thematic map. Okay, and then using that, we try to understand what are the different how the different variables are connected among each other, right?
Yeah, like exploring their relationship, that we do.
Yes.
Okay. But in content analysis, we just like code the data and represent it in the pictorial form.
Here also we look for different themes. We look for different themes, but the focus is more on the content itself.
Okay. Like what I'm getting is, ma'am, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like in the, as you said, that coding process will be a little bit different. Like there are other kind of techniques in which we maybe code it and interpret it in thematic analysis, And in content analysis, it is just general, like we will code the data, we'll try to find out the themes, but the focus will be like, for example, that will be like the findings also will be in the qualitative form only, right?
Yes,
The
yes, the
interpretation.
pattern, we try to understand the pattern,
Okay.
which are emerging out of the content,
Okay.
okay,
But
which we
in
are
thematic
analyzing.
analysis, there are different techniques which we don't know
Yes,
as of
yes,
now.
yes. So
Oh,
we use different types of codes, and we then look at the different themes which are emerging, and then we try to relate one theme with another to find different
yeah, like we find
subcategories of
we
theme.
hmm.
Yeah.
We try to make maps
So
and all, right?
yes, yes, yes. So
Mapping
in the
and all.
thematic
Yeah.
analysis, the final output will be 5 to 7 different themes out of the
Okay.
entire discussion. You
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah.
get, okay, and how these different themes are related to each other.
Each
That is
other.
what we will be looking at after a thematic analysis is done. In a
Okay.
content analysis, on the other hand, we are more concerned with the content which is coming out of it, that pattern.
Okay.
Okay, but yes, in
Understood.
most cases, we can be using different types of maps, different types of
Mhm.
graphical representations of how the variables are connected. So these are more or less overlapping. All these different methods are quite
Mhm.
overlapping. Okay.
Okay. And ma'am, there is another, like I have studied, I don't know much about qualitative, but there is one more interpretative.
Um, Sorry, Anjali, I can't hear you.
Anjali is asking about the interpretative.
Interpretative what?
Phenomenological analysis. So in that also we
Okay,
basically
okay.
take interviews and do thematic analysis only, right?
Yes, but the approach is a little different.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we have, I think it is there in your syllabus. So we will
Hmm.
discuss that in details,
Okay,
right?
fine, fine. Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
sure,
Ma'am,
sure, sure. Yes,
ma'am, this is Varsha, ma'am.
yes, for sure.
Ma'am, in qualitative research, we also we generally focus more on to the meaning what the people are giving onto that thing. So we try to understand that part of the thing. So under which analysis do we do this, ma'am?
No, all these different analysis will give you the same thing. See, the idea is not just to understand that how people are perceiving it. The idea is to understand what is the general perception about it. That's why we do not interview one single person. We interview a number of persons. So I'll give you an example here. One sociologist actually thought about exploring why men rape, okay, in the Indian context. So she interviewed 100 rape accused, okay, who were staying in Tihar jail. Okay, and then she did a content analysis and thematic analysis of the entire data set to understand, which are the different reasons, different causes which is actually leading a person to behave in that particular manner. Okay, so the idea is not to understand what one person thinks for in an individualistic approach. The idea is to understand that what happens generally, because the ultimate goal is to do generalization.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for
So,
any research. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So, basically in qualitative research also, we will start, we will get rich data from
Yes.
whichever method we proceed. So we'll get a rich
Yes.
data out of that. So for when we get a rich data, we'll start with content analysis first. Is it something like that,
Upon,
or you can go?
It depends upon the researcher. You can go for content analysis, you can go for thematic analysis, okay, you can go for narrative analysis. All these are different methods. So you have to make a choice, which particular analytic method is more suitable for a particular data. type of data which you have got. Okay,
Yes,
and then you can go ahead with it. Then it is
Yes.
also possible that some part of it you for that part you used content analysis, and then a little other part for that particular a different part you are using a different method. So you can be combining 2-3 different analytic methods for interpreting the data. That is also possible. So as I told you, qualitative research actually is quite flexible. It allows us to use different methods of understanding the phenomena, and you can do it. It is not like you have to decide it right at the beginning that, okay, I'm going to use this particular analytic method only and I cannot change it later on. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, so if you are seeing that a particular method is more suitable, you can be using it. Not a
Yes,
problem.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any
Yes.
other question? All right. So,
Okay,
I think
thank
we
you,
do not
Shobana.
have.
You have
Yes,
covered
yes,
very
sir. So
nicely.
yes, thank you, sir. Actually, I had planned to, teach the case study method as well, but I think today we do not have that much time. So sir, you can tell me, should I start it today or I can start it on Friday?
Yeah, today still time is there. So at least
Yes,
if
we
you
have
give
10.
some example of the case study, some sample case study, so students can understand.
Yes. So, all right. So let me just introduce the method itself with certain, interesting case studies, and then we can discuss the detailed process, steps, etc. in the next class. All right. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen again. All right. So first one, can anyone tell me who is this person? A very famous case study in psychology. Anyone? Phineas Gage. Yes, very good. Very good. Thank you. Yes, so this is the, one of the very first case studies which actually, helped us understand, it actually led to a lot of new discoveries. Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Phineas Gage is the person.
Yes. Thank you.
And yeah,
Correct.
the rod went through because of the accident. The rod went through his
Yes.
skull, and
Yes.
then also
Yes.
he
Yes.
survived.
Yes. So, this is a type of, a phenomena that was, that should not have happened. Generally what happens, anything like this happens, the person definitely dies. Okay. But Phineas Gage actually, the case of Phineas Gage actually became a very popular, very famous case study in psychology because he survived. Okay. And his survival actually led to many new discoveries later on. So, for example, scientists discovered that, the temporal lobe is actually the site for, shaping our personality and all those different types of things, the connection between the frontal lobe and temporal lobe, how it, gets affected if one specific area is damaged, and all those different things, which led to great discoveries at a later stage. So this was the case of Phineas Gage, which is, I think, one of the most, one of the very initial stages, the very first case studies which happened in psychology, in the field of psychology. I'll talk about the case study of Little Hans. Okay, so have you heard this name, Little Hans, this case study? Can anyone tell me who did this case study?
Hello.
Anyone? Yes.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
you are
continue.
audible.
We have studied, I think this was a case study presented by Freud, right? Little Hans.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sigmund Freud. Right, very good. So, actually, Little Hans is this particular case study was the basis of Freud's, lot of a lot of his work was actually based on this particular case study. So Hans was actually the son of one of the friends of Freud. So he studied Hans, very closely, and this was the one of the dreams that he had analyzed. So Hans is awakened in the early morning by a loud scary noise. Hans goes to the window and sees an overturned horse-drawn cart in the street. Everything is loud and chaotic. Hans can't miss seeing the horse's penis. Okay, so this was the dream that little Hans had. Okay, and Freud interpreted this dream in this particular way. So little Hans associates large penises with feelings of fear. Okay, and this concept which he later on he gave, Oedipus complex, which actually forms a major part of his theory that he proposed later on. But it was the very basic concepts of it was actually developed on these different case studies. One of them being a major one is that of Little Hans. So you see how one specific case study actually led Sigmund Freud to develop his and propose his this famous theory that we know of today. And the applications are huge. We have no idea how it works, right? Those are the criticisms that we have for Freud's theory, that the objectivity is very less, and we have no ways of proving anything of about his theory. But still it works wonders, right? In therapy also it has large applications. So how does it work? Right. So these are some of the very specific case studies which were done towards the beginning of when psychology was actually developing as a specific field, as a different discipline. Right. And these different case studies actually led to a lot of discoveries, lot of very rich contributions in this particular field. All right. So what is a case study? Right. So case study is also known as a case report, and it is an in-depth or intensive study of a single individual or specific group, while a case series is a grouping of similar case studies or case reports together. So a researcher can be working on a single individual or a specific group. Okay, single individual as in that for Little Hans or Phineas Gage. Specific group can be, for example, the works that were done on Jarwa tribe of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, right? It was done by a sociologist, I think a social anthropologist actually, worked on the Jarwa tribe right at the beginning, and then later on, a lot of other researchers also did it. So it can be a specific group, and a case series is a number of grouping of different case studies taken together. So a researcher can be looking at, for example, a researcher can be trying to understand that if one specific area of our parietal lobe gets damaged, what happens? Okay, now this is not something that you can study through experimental methods. You cannot just bring in a person, damage his or her parietal lobe, and then try to study it. You have to wait for such kind of patients, right? Whenever they will come to you, right? So a researcher can be combining 5 to 6 or 10 different patients who, reported similar type of damage in a particular area of the brain, and then try to, report that for each of those patients, how it actually, this damage, what it, or how it actually affected their behavior. So that will comprise a case series, okay, where each of these patients will be considered as a single case. And when the researcher is combining this 5 to 7 different cases or 10 different cases together, it gives rise to this case series about a particular phenomena that is happening. Okay, so a case study or case report can be used in the following instances, where there is a typical or abnormal behavior or development, an unexplained outcome to treatment, and an emerging disease or condition. So these are the different contexts or situations where a case study actually emerges. All right. So in a case study, a real-time phenomenon is explored within its naturally occurring context, with the consideration that context will create a difference. Okay, what does it mean? See, I'll give you an example here. I'll talk about, it's a case study in organizational behavior, right? So what happened in one of the cities in West Bengal, there used to be, there is still one very big industry. Okay, and this industry I think in the 1970s or 80s, this case study was actually reported later on. So this is about this particular industry. So during the 1970s or something, sometime around that, that particular decade, it happened that this industry was actually going through huge loss. Okay, all the workers, they were, agitating all the time, and the productivity was very low. Okay, and there were agitations everywhere. Every day, the workers would come to the factory and they would start agitating against the authorities, and it was a complete mess at that time. All right, so the management decided that they would, change the director. Okay, they call them the vice president or something like that. It's like a CEO position. Okay, so they decided that they are going to change it. Right now, what happened? So this new person who was recruited as the CEO or vice president of that particular industry, so when he took charge, he first thought that he had some background training in HRM, and he thought that to solve this problem, he needed to understand the workers first. So he did not do anything during the first 3 months. Okay, didn't take any decision whatsoever. He let everything continue for the first 3 months. He just studied, observed the workers, how, why they were agitating and what were the reasons and all. He interviewed some of the workers. Okay, then he started visiting the households of these workers. So he found that the workers were actually living in a very, very poor condition. So, they were like slums where they were staying, and their children were going to the local municipal schools. They were not getting good education and all. All right. So all these things he observed, he made a note about it. Okay, he also observed the working conditions which were there in the factory. He interviewed the different workers while being on the job. Okay, he tried to note down all the difficulties that the workers were facing while being on the job. Okay, so he did a very in-depth study of all these different factors through different interview and observation methods, right? And then finally, he started working on it. So what he did was that after this 3 months window, he decided that the management needed to spend some money for these workers. So for the workers, new houses were built. Okay, new school was built for their children. Okay, they were given buses to commute from their houses to the factories. The working conditions inside the factory were also improved. Okay, the infrastructure was improved. And what happened after that? After this period of 2-3 months, after all those different modifications were done, it was found that the workers stopped agitating and they came back to work. Okay, so all their while they were demanding about increasing their incentives and all those things stopped right when their living conditions improved. So they developed this job satisfaction. Okay, the working conditions were better and all, and then they magically on their own they started coming to the factory and started working. So the productivity increased just like that. Okay, so this actually formed a very good case study for organizational behavior, right? It can be something like this as well. So you see, it's a real-time phenomena that was happening at that time, okay, in a naturally occurring context. So the researcher did not try to manipulate or change the context of the case study that was happening at that time. The researcher just looked into the phenomena, how it all happened from in a neutral position, and then reported it in a nice way so that people are able to understand that which were the factors which actually brought about a change in the mentality of the workers. All right, so that's what case study is about. All right, so it can be in different, it can happen in different contexts. It can happen in a clinical setting, it can happen in an organizational context. Okay, it can happen in a social context. And the basic idea, the specific aim of these case studies is to explore a particular phenomena and try to bring about new ideas, new insights, okay, in that particular context. All right, so this is what case study is about. So I'll stop here today, and in the next class we will be discussing more about case study. So if there is any question, please feel free to ask. Yes, any question?
Hello, Shati. You are not telling anything.
Hello.
Shati,
Yes,
please
sir.
you share.
Um,
If you have any question.
no, sir, it was all right so far. So it's pretty clear. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so in the next class, we will be discussing the advantages, disadvantages of case study method, then the different steps that we can follow. And then I'll show you certain case studies, how they are written and how the researcher, they have explained, presented the case study, and what were the conclusions that were drawn from those case studies. So I'll discuss those in the next class. And then if we have time, we will start off with the next topic. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good night, everybody. If you have any
Sir. Good night,
question, please you
everyone.
write in the group.
Good night, sir.
Thank you for your patient listening.